We are continuing on our journey through Ilchot Shabbat and Asiyat Chafasav B'Yom HaShabbat, doing your mundane activities of things that are your needs on Shabbat are restricted, as we say in the Psukim that we recite right before Kiddush of Shabbat morning, Im Tashiv MiShabbat Raklecha, Asot Chafasecha B'Yom Kodshi. If you hold back, Im Tashiv MiShabbat Raklecha, you hold back your feet from running around doing your mundane things, Asot Chafasecha, doing your stuff, B'Yom Kodshi, on my holy day. So the beginning, opening pasuk that we say on Shabbat morning in the Kiddush, and hence the halachot that we have in, this is again the pasuk in Yeshaya Navi, Perek Nunchet, pasuk Yud Gimal, and therefore asur la'adam lalechet b'Shabbat lesof sadeh o ginato. A person should not be going to visit his real estate, his garden, his field, la'ayen ulitbonen b'hem ma'hem tzrichim lemachar, to plan of action for tomorrow. What am I going to be doing tomorrow? I'm going to call this contractor, the pool guy, whatever it is, to go around, use the time for Shabbat to plan mundane activities. Even though you're doing nothing, there's no lameted melachot that you're transgressing, but still it will be prohibited because of this pasuk, Im tashiv b'Shabbat raglecha, asot chafasecha b'yom kodshi. Now, this also includes that on Shabbat you don't want to go to a place that you can't go necessarily on Shabbat. You got to go by the tchum, stand by the tchum of Shabbat, wait for it for Shabbat to finish, and then you run to do your thing. Samuch lesadeu beginato k'tei liktov perot b'motzei Shabbat. In order to go do something that's asur on Shabbat, you don't want to prepare for that on Shabbat either. Again, if it's not a clear thing, you're just taking a regular stroll, that would be mutar, but not something that's obvious that you're preparing yourself for the mundane activities. Now, imagine you want to rent a house, you want to buy a property. So, what's the best way of doing it? Usually, the signs are up on Shabbat and Sunday, so you take your wife and you go on a nice long stroll on Shabbat, but really what's going on up here is, I'm going around looking for the signs of real estate to see what's there to buy, what's there to sell, what's there to rent. That's my plan, right? Says the halacha, en lo lalechet b'Shabbat lemakom sheyesh sham dira v'lirot im hi mat'ima lo ulbnei beto. You shouldn't be going and checking out houses on Shabbat, even though that, again, you're doing nothing, but that is doing your mundane activities on Shabbat. But if the dira belongs to Goy in Eretz Yisrael, now in Eretz Yisrael, there's a mitzvah to own land in Eretz Yisrael, and especially if it means that you are going to make it more settled by Jews, it is recognized as a mitzvah of Yeshuv Eretz Yisrael. It's very interesting, actually. We just spoke about this in light of the current events of davening for Eretz Yisrael and so on. It is timely to say that there is a machloket between Rambam and Ramban in one of the mitzvot that Rambam does not count, and Ramban argues with him. Ramban wrote a list on Sefer HaMitzvot of the Rambam, a list that he feels should be counted as the mitzvot, and Rambam didn't count them. He calls them mitzvot sheshechachan harav, right? The mitzvot that Rambam harav forgot to count, right? Obviously, he didn't forget to count anything. They argue essentially what to count, what not to count, and that partially includes the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael as well. Ramban in Mitzvah Aseh Dalet, in the fourth positive mitzvah, counts the living and the conquest of Eretz Yisrael. Today, that we don't have the Beit HaMikdash, today that we don't have a Jewish king, still, that is considered a mitzvah deoraita. Ramban actually himself, parenthetically, after he had the great debate of his life with one of his former students who became a Christian, Pablo Cristiani, he named himself this fellow, and he went to the king and to the church, and he said, look, if I debate the main chief rabbi of the Jews, and I convince him, then we could use that to force everyone to Catholicism, right? And they enforced a forced debate, basically, on Ramban, on the Nachmanides, and this became the most humiliating experience that the church and the king of Spain had to date, right? Ramban later on wrote this. It's called Sefer Milchamot Hashem, or Sefer HaVikuach, and afterwards it was uncomfortable to keep this rabbi in town, so they kind of like expelled him. They were sore losers, right? They expelled him and said, look, go wherever you want, but you can't stay here. And Ramban writes in a letter, he said, maybe Hashgacha of Hashem is having it that I should leave to Eretz Yisrael, because I hold living in Eretz Yisrael even today is considered mitzvah daseh. So he went to Eretz Yisrael. The last 3 years of his life, he was in Eretz Yisrael. He was the one that was miyased, the original yishuv. If you go to the Kotel and the way to Kotel, you have the Bet HaKnesset Shel Ramban. That really in the Churba Shul, right? In the bottom, there's Bet HaKnesset Shel Ramban, which it's dated back to the time of Ramban, some 700 plus years ago. But nevertheless, this is just a parenthesis that is important to live in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore that is considered a mitzvah. And now, because it's considered a mitzvah to buy back a property from a Gentile in Eretz Yisrael and to make it now a Jewish settled area, Rashai lalechet ulbotkah, even if you have to go check it out on Shabbat, in order to see if it's befitting, and you could buy it after Shabbat, that will be mutar, ki mitzvah liknot dira min hagoy be'eretz Yisrael. That's considered an additional mitzvah. So you're not doing a mundane activity, you're doing something that will be constituted as a mitzvah in and of itself, and therefore it would be permitted. Mutar lalechet b'Shabbat samuch l'chashecha letachanat autobus, right? It's mutar to go on Shabbat, later on Shabbat evening, close to Motzei Shabbat, to a bus station, ulhamtin sham k'dei linsam miyad b'set Shabbat lechol dvar mitzvah. If you're going for a mitzvah on Motzei Shabbat, so you could walk, take a stroll, and go to a bus stop, in order that when the Shabbat finishes, you can get on the next bus and go to do the mitzvah. Le'tzorech mitzvah, this item is mutar. And says, for instance, you want to go in Motzei Shabbat, right? After the Chag, whatever it is, you want to go buy after Rosh Hashanah. You want to buy etrog, and it's time sensitive, right? Every minute that you get there later, there's less good etrogim to choose from. So you want to be one of the first ones. You could walk to Tachanat Autobus. You could go to the bus stop, and once Shabbat is finished, you get on a bus. You go to get your Arba Minim. That is considered a sorach mitzvah. Even if you're getting it for your friend, still will be considered part of the mitzvah. Now, if a person hires a worker to watch his garden, right? You have a field, and you don't want thieves to come, so Shabbat, you can't be there. So you want to hire workers to watch your fruits. B'schirut shel kol yom vayom. Every day that he comes, he gets extra $100. Or you want a babysitter, right? You need to leave for a few hours on Shabbat, and you need a babysitting service. A person, let me explain this a little bit more clear because it's confusing. A Jew cannot receive schar Shabbat, cannot receive a payment for a service on Shabbat. You could accept payments for goods on Shabbat. This actually happened just yesterday, for those of you who haven't seen, and this could happen on Shabbat as well. People who ran to the miklat, it's actually happened over Shabbat as well. This happened actually over Shabbat. This past Shabbat, people who ran on Friday because of sirens, and they just went to the miklat, right? And then they stayed there for hours. And by the time they came, the stores had to be closed. The Shabbat had come. It happened both before and after Shabbat. And they forgot that they had left the store open. They thought they had closed on. So he went, The whole day took off afterwards, and they come to the store after Shabbat, or again yesterday on Monday. They come and there are notes on the counter. I took kach v'kach, right, and payment here. Like here, it's so beautiful. Mikam Chai Yisrael, beautiful thing to see. The honesty, integrity of Am Yisrael. But that can happen. You could go buy, get something from the store that's open, and you pay for it afterwards. Paying for goods, right? It's that you took on Shabbat. That would be permissible, but you cannot charge for services that you made. So I'll give you an example of the difference. If you're a Jewish, a nice Bishako girl, and you want to do babysitting, you don't need any preparations. You're not spending anything. It's just your time and expertise and personality. It's a service, right? You're not providing any goods. You're providing a service. You cannot charge for a service. You hire a chazar, a tokeya, for instance, for Rosh Hashanah, right? He's not. It's his expertise. It's a service. There, it's a little different because the sorech mitzvah, the Ramah is a little bit more mekel, but the Shulchan Aruch still is machmir. You can't charge for a service. So what's the way out? The way out of it is you tell the girl that's going to be babysitting, you tell the fellow that's going to be blowing shofar, say, I don't want you to just jump into this on Shabbat. I want you to come prepared. I want you to go practice blowing well enough, even though that your world's most famous Tokeya, I still want you to practice. You're a good babysitter. I want you to go practice the parasha, or to learn with them before Shabbat already, or print out some interesting things, whatever. You give them some job that's going to be done before Shabbat, and you pay for the package, because that is considered havla'ah. Havla'ah is a package deal that you're paying for a job done partially on Shabbat, partially outside of Shabbat, and that's mutar to pay for the package, right? You're not paying hourly, you're not paying for only the day of Shabbat. So that will make it mutar. That is only if the recipient is a Jew. If the recipient is a goy, that's mutar. To pay schar Shabbat is mutar. To receive schar Shabbat for a Jew is asur. So therefore, if you are hiring a goya, a non-Jewish maid, that comes and works for you only on Shabbat. This is your Shabbat maid. And you're paying her the hours that she worked after Shabbat. That's totally fine. There's no problem with that, right? Schar Shabbat is the problem for a Jew to charge, not for a Jew to pay. Therefore, if I hire the babysitter, it's asur for me to pay it because it's asur for her to receive it. You understand? And this package deal, I'll give you another example, which is a little more creative, that was asked and answered by Rabbi Cheskel Landau, the famous Nodab Yehuda, was asked a simple question. How do women who go to mikveh on Friday night pay for their mikveh? It's services, right? Mikveh is a service. Whether I go there or 100, it's a service of the community. So how can I, as a user of the mikveh, pay for the mikveh? Right? It's for the Jews that are running the mikveh is considered schar Shabbat. The owner of the mikveh, whoever the entity is, they can't charge schar Shabbat. This was the question that was sent to the Nodab Yehuda. Nodab Yehuda, in a creative but groundbreaking work, which became basically the set halacha after that, writes the following. Listen to this. This is beautiful. Says the Nodab Yehuda, correct. The service that you use from mikveh, they cannot charge, but every person that uses the mikveh, the money that they pay is a combination of services and goods, because you give them shampoo, you give them a towel, you give them whatever it is that you give it, toothpicks in this, all those things that you provide in a mikveh goodie bag that you give them is what you pay for them, and they're paying for that. A part of the X amount of dollars that they are paying is for the goods that you give them, and the rest is for the services. So says the Nodab Yehuda, not only you could say havla'ah in time, not only I could have a package deal on work, a service that is provided partially on Shabbat and partially on Yemot HaChol, on weekdays, I also could have a package deal from things that are on Shabbat, partially mutar, partially asur. That means if partially is goods, and partially services, and I'm doing a package deal, an X amount of dollar package for usage of mikveh, that also is considered a combination, and so long as it's not fully services, is mutar to pay, because it's considered havla'ah. It's considered that I'm paying for a service good combo, and that's mutar, just like it is mutar to pay for a combo of services on Shabbat and Yemot HaChol, which is partially mutar, partially asur. If you combine them together, will be mutar. Here will be the same thing. So that really is the second half of the halachot of Schar Shabbat, and Be'ezrat Hashem will continue picking this up tomorrow morning. Chazak u'baruch.